Something unprecedented is happening in the Middle East as we speak. In a headline from the Times of Israel, it says that Israel said working to forge ties with Bahrain amid unprecedented Gulf opening. And I'm just going to begin reading this article because there's just so much here. It says Israel is working to normalize ties with Bahrain as Jerusalem ramps up its drive to forge more open relationships, not just relationships, but open relationships with the Arab world amid shifting alliances in the Middle East, driven by shared concerns over Iran, Hebrew language news sites reported late Sunday. The report, sourced to an unnamed senior official, did not detail Israel's efforts to get closer to Manama, but came hours after the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hinted he would soon travel to unspecified Arab states during a press conference with visiting Chadian leader Idris Deby Sunday. So right now the leader of Chad is visiting Israel at this time. If you remember last month, Israel was in another Arab nation known as Oman. Going on the article, it says Deby's historic visit was part of a campaign to lay the groundwork for normalizing ties with Muslim-majority countries Sudan, Mali, and Niger, according to a report in Israel's Channel 10 News Sunday. The revelation that Israel is actively working to forge closer ties with Bahrain comes as Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is visiting the island kingdom. The prince, who has attempted to rehab his image in the West after the killing of writer Jamal Khashoggi, is seen as a key part of U.S.-backed drive for Gulf states to open their doors to Israel amid shared concern over Iran's expansion in the region. In May, Bahrain's foreign minister wrote on Twitter that Israel has the right to defend itself against Iran, which basically is, or should I say was, taboo in the Arab world. It was not that long ago, and has been for many decades, that these Arab nations, Islamic countries, have been enemies and have hated Israel. Now because of the shared concern over Iran's move into the Middle East, many of these countries are looking for help from Israel. Oman, which has often played the role of regional mediator, welcomed Netanyahu in a surprise visit last month, an apparent sign of Israeli progress in improving ties with Gulf countries. At a security conference in Bahrain following the visit, Omani foreign minister also offered rare words of support for the Jewish state. And this is what he said. He said, Israel is a state present in the region, and we all understand this. The world is also aware of this fact, and maybe it is time for Israel to be treated the same and also bear the same obligations. And this was said by Foreign Minister Yusuf bin Ala'i bin Abdullah. Now, during a press conference with Deby, Netanyahu remarked that there will be more such visits in Arab countries very soon, without providing details. The Israeli premier has for years spoken about the warming ties between Israel and the Arab world, citing not only Iran as a common enemy, but also many countries interested in cooperating with Israel on security and defense matters, as well as Israel's growing high-tech industry. Now, here's another surprising nation that is trying to get closer to Israel so that they can get closer to the Sunni Gulf states. It says that in an effort to forge ties with Sudan comes as they are looking to move closer to Sunni Gulf states after years as an ally of Iran. At the time, the country also appeared to make overtures toward Israel. Foreign Minister Ibrahim Gamdur said in a 2016 interview that Sudan was open to the idea of normalizing ties with Israel in exchange for lifting U.S. sanctions on their country. According to Hebrew language media reports at the time, Israeli diplomats tried to drum up support for Sudan in the international community after it severed its ties to Tehran. And as many of you know, that in the past, Sudan has allegedly served as a way station for the transfer of Iranian weapons to Hamas terrorist group in Gaza. In fact, Israel has reportedly intercepted and destroyed transfers of weapons from Sudan bound for Gaza many times. However, since it broke ties with Iran, Sudan is no longer perceived by Israel as a threat, but rather as a potential ally. Now, earlier on Sunday, Deby became the first president of Chad to visit Israel and pledged a new era of relations when meeting Netanyahu 46 years after ties were severed. In remarks to journalists after a closed-door meeting, Deby spoke of the two countries committing to a new era of cooperation with the prospect of reestablishing diplomatic relations. Deby said he was proud that he had accepted Israel's official invitation. It can be called breaking the ice, he said. We came here indeed with desire to renew diplomatic relations. Your country is an important country. Your country, like Chad, fights against terrorism. Chad, a Muslim majority Arabic-speaking country in Central Africa, broke off relations with Israel in 1972. Despite the lack of formal ties, both Deby and Netanyahu on Sunday stressed the centrality of security cooperation between the two countries. Chad is also one of several African states engaged in Western-backed operations against Boko Haram and Islamic State jihadists in West Africa. Earlier this month, the U.S. donated military vehicles and boats worth $1.3 million to Chad as part of a campaign against Islamic militancy in the country. Under Deby, Chad's government has been accused of widespread human rights abuses and rigged elections. He took over the arid, impoverished nation in 1990 and won a disputed fifth term in April 2016. And, something you need to think about when all this is being said and all of these successful visits to Islamic nations and having Islamic nations come to Israel, and it all being done in the open, may have a lot to do with what's going on secretly behind closed doors in preparation for this secretive deal of the century that Mr. Trump is about ready to unveil. It's kind of shocking to me that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Israel is being, the arms of Islamic nations are being opened wide by many Islamic leaders who before this year actually hated Israel. And I can think of two Islamic leaders right now that could very well be using the United States in order to sweep a few allegations under the rug, such as this leader from Chad who has been accused of widespread human rights and rigged elections. Another nation, I believe, is Sudan, who is now butting up to Israel and hoping that through this they might be able to have U.S. sanctions lifted. And of course, last but not least, we're talking about the Saudi prince who has been accused of killing this Washington Post reporter. Certainly, he would love to see this go away at some point in time. Certainly, there are a lot of benefits, it looks like, in working with Israel. On Sunday, Chadian security sources were quoted by Reuters saying that Israel had sent Chad arms and money earlier this year to help the country in its fight against Islamic groups. Netanyahu, in his remarks to journalists, thanked Deby for his visit and hailed flourishing ties between Israel and African nations. He declined questions about whether the two leaders discussed potential Israeli arms sales to Chad. And don't think for a second that this isn't being hid from the United States. Anytime that you hear something like this, you should be saying to yourself and looking at Daniel 9:27 saying peace with many. I could be wrong, but this sounds just too convenient for it not to be something that the Trump administration has been working hard behind the scenes along with the Israeli government to set up these whirlwind diplomatic visits to, of all places, Islamic nations that had previously been enemies, sworn enemies of Israel. But in the face of what I believe are promises from the United States to lift sanctions, to give favors, or whatever the case may be, I think that you're going to see some things happening come February that we simply did not see coming. Now, certainly that's speculation on my part. I have not seen the plan. I don't know a lot about it. And frankly, nobody does. But it's reports like this that just come out of the blue that Israel was in the past not able to manufacture on their own. All of a sudden, just before the Trump administration is about to release their plan, all of a sudden they're doing a whirlwind tour of Islamic nations that simply hated Israel. Frankly, this seems just too convenient as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Iran has been a Middle East threat to these nations for years, but just all of a sudden they want to come together and create ties, not just ties, but open ties with Israel. Whereas Israel is openly inviting and being invited to these Arab Islamic nations. And many of them had previous ties with Iran. Well, let me do a little bit of a recap here for you. President Trump has said in 3 short months that he will be revealing his peace plan. French President Emmanuel Macron, if not for the fact that right now his country is under siege by their own countrymen because of higher gas prices, I believe he probably would have also released his plan in a matter of weeks. I don't know if that will be the case now, but it doesn't look like it. But he's still in the running to be a part of some type of plan, even with Mr. Trump. So I do expect that the European Union will play a part. And last but not least, just recently, Mr. Putin in Russia has said that he would like to play his hand in attempting to mediate the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So he also wants in on this particular peace with many. And I call it peace with many because I believe that's what it's going to turn out to be. And here's probably where all the players are going to play their part. And I believe that Russia will probably be given the task of taking out, or at least controlling, Iran and anyone else who is in Syria. And they will be tasked by taking control of that area and making sure that this peace with many does indeed flourish and does stay in peace. I believe the European Union will also play a part. They will probably play the part of representative of the Palestinian Authority. And of course, the last part will be the U.S., in which they will try to mediate with Israel and to pacify the Palestinians. But also, they will help in bringing aboard all these other Islamic nations that we simply did not see being part of this peace with many. And certainly, I believe that Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and all the other major Arab League countries will be involved. But we'll certainly have to wait and see how this shakes out. And certainly I am waiting for 2 other developments to take place as well. And that is that under the Antichrist, he will lead a 10-nation kingdom. We'll have to see how that works out. And also, of course, we need to see the temple being rebuilt. But certainly this report of mass Islamic nations wanting open ties with Israel is certainly a shock to me. And you have to wonder what in the world is going on behind scenes for this to happen. And what are we still to see happen once this supposed deal of the century is unveiled? I read the comments once in a while. Once I do a video, and I've heard people time and time again say that this U.S. plan will never run its course. Many are saying that it's going to flop just like the others have in the past. And certainly that very well may be true. In fact, the Bible does support that only the European Union or the revived Roman Empire will be the nations that will, which the Antichrist will come out of, will be the leader that will bring this to pass. But I'm wondering if he's not just going to be a part of this to help make it strong and to confirm it, but other nations, that's why they said it will be a peace with many, will be involved and will also help to bring it to its full course. So I have to wait and see how this turns out. And certainly, if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. Don't put it off. It's appointed unto man once to die, then you are going to face God. If you have not done so, you need to turn your life over to the Lord. Ask him to save you, repent of your sins, and from this day forward, start and begin to live for him. And you Christians, you need a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. I can express to you the importance of getting this in the hands of every lost loved one and a relative that you have. There are 2 versions. You can go down to the description section of this video and pick the version that you want. Either the paid version, which is a paperback version you can hand to your lost friend or loved one, or you can download the digital version. But that's all down in the description section, so go down there and make that decision. but I'd do it quickly if I were you. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.